Hi, I'm Alan Clark.
Hi, Alan.
I'm Cole Wilcher.
Dominic McDale.
Keith Green.
And how long have you been directing or been working at the barn?
Ooh, I have been involved at the barn since about 2015. The first show I did that I was involved with here was Little Shop of Horrors, and I was assistant stage manager for that.
I've been involved with the barn since 2017. My first show was Big Fish. And I've been directing the children's theater since 2019.
I have been involved here since I think 2019. I started out acting and I switched over to directing about 2 years ago, I want to say.
Well, mine goes back a little further. In fact, Nancy Geiger contacted me to do my first show here and directed Lend Me a Tenor in the fall of 1992. And I've had some hiatuses in there, haven't been always steady, but I know I've directed a bunch of shows here, designed a bunch of shows, built a bunch of shows, all that sort of stuff. Been doing theater actually since 1976.
You got us beat by a couple of years there.
Yeah.
You got a little more experience on us.
Yeah, I'm the old part.
Well, I've got a list of questions here. I'm just going to start, and if you guys want to go on a tangent, we can do that. We can take some audience questions in there if they're related. We can do that. I'm sure you have a giant list of things to read off. So let's start with some basic stuff. What do you like to direct? What types of shows are your favorite?
I'll jump in. I don't do music. I'm not a huge fan of musicals. I respect them immensely, but I don't sing. I don't dance. I don't play an instrument. I like to joke that to me it's not normal for people to suddenly break into song. Except some other people I know do that. But really, for me, it's non-musical, rather drama, comedy, either one. I really enjoy like a single set cast of, say 12 to 15 or fewer. That's really where I feel like I specialize. Still Magnolias. Did Savannah Sipping Society, if you saw that. The Rainmaker, The Foreigner, shows like that. So that's what I love doing.
Yeah, I'm kind of with him on that. I love my dramas. I tend to go towards more darker material, if you will, that probably can't be done at the barn a lot of the times. Ashley knows what I'm talking about. But I also lean more towards, I look at shows with a lot of physicality, or if you're able to incorporate them. I didn't know that physical theater was a thing, a topic, until 3 years ago, and I found it and absolutely loved it. So now any show that I do, I try and take as much physicality and put it in it. I love when you can use your body and your movement to express emotions within a show. And then I also love children's shows. It comes with a whole set of challenges working with kids, but I love it. They keep me busy. They keep you on your toes, but in the end, it's definitely worth it.
Can you explain what physical theater is?
Oh yeah, okay, yeah. Thanks, Melissa. I don't want to go on a tangent unless somebody asks. So physical theater, a lot of it is dance-based, but you do not have to be a professionally trained ballerina to do it. It's a lot of contemporary movements. In shows where there's just strictly physical theater, there's little to no dialogue within it, and it's just movement-based. So the one that I saw was, again, a little bit darker, so I'm so sorry, but it was about domestic abuse. And you didn't know what it was until you were sitting there watching it and realizing what their movements were saying. For example, the first show I directed was Metamorphoses in college. And that show, I don't know if you guys are familiar with it, you're supposed to do it in a giant body of water. Obviously, for logistic reasons, you can't put a body of water in a theater. They wouldn't let me. I tried, but it didn't work. So I took the physicality from it, and we were able to use minimal set with it. So we used these building blocks, and this was our body of water, but it really came down to the actors and how they were portraying it. So when you're swimming, you're not saying you're swimming, but you're doing your motions. Maybe not that, because it looks a little bit like a dance. But yeah, that's a lot of what physical theater is.
Have you directed anything here at the barn incorporating that?
Yeah, I've done more choreography at the barn. I was able to co-direct the Christmas show 2 years ago. Yeah.
How old for?
Miracle on 34th Street.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so the one after that. So I think it was about 2 years ago. And that had a lot of cute movements I was able to incorporate in that. My elves were a lot of the children, and so I had them doing a lot of back movement with it. So they were passing out candy canes or doing little dances here and there. So I was able to incorporate that a little bit, but I haven't been able to do a full physical theater piece here yet. I'm working on it.
I also really enjoy the dramas and kind of the more serious, kind of more dark toned shows, but I also do really love the like the bright comedy, the farces, the more slapstick comedy. I have a background in stage combat as well as stunt choreography, so I really love to do shows that incorporate any of that, whether it's working with Who's in Bed with the Butler and teaching a clumsy detective how to hit his head constantly without concussing himself. Or I came and helped Dominique with Metamorphoses for a huge sword fight, and I came in and choreographed that. I love working with kids. That's kind of where my big passion lies, especially here. Like I said, I've been directing the children's theater stuff since 2019. And just working with these kids on getting kind of like comedic timing and working with them on character development and then doing the dramas. Al and I code Wait Until Dark, and that was a pretty serious script, and it had some of the combat and some stunts and stuff like that. And so I would love to have the opportunity to direct a musical. I haven't done that quite yet. I have done some vocal coaching, just kind of on the side, but I've never had the opportunity to direct a full-fledged musical yet.
Well, for me, I'm a comedy junkie. I like the farces, I like the comedies because that's my sweet spot, I feel like. So I enjoy directing that and kind of encouraging others in that aspect. Doing dramas is great too, and I do prefer, kind of like Keith said, a cast of about 15 or less is kind of ideal. I have done bigger shows. I directed Elf the musical, and obviously that was a large number of kiddos and adults. So, but it was also a great challenge. It was fun. It was my first musical that I directed. It may be my last musical that I direct. It was a good challenge. It was a good experience nonetheless. But yeah, comedies are my favorite.
Once you know what show you're going to be doing on stage, how do you come up with your concept and vision to make it all flow and work?
Well, I'll take this one first. I love Pinterest. I will find my show that I'm doing and I will sit on Pinterest. I will take the theme and I'll pick a color scheme and just go with it. I was taught that in school. My theater professor absolutely loved Pinterest, so she kind of got me on that. But I will categorize it into sections on, this is what I think the set will look like, this is what I think the costumes will look like, and then I'll share it with my production team. So that is really helpful in that aspect. But I also try and refrain from watching the show. I will read it on my own. I will sit and have other people read it with me. I think that is incredibly helpful. But I am the type of person who knows that I cannot watch a show and separate myself from that and know that I'm not going to take maybe what they envisioned and put it into my show. So I just avoid doing that at all costs.
I try to be as honest to the script as I possibly can. It's kind of a blending thing. You've got to think about who do you have available, talents, abilities, what can you do, what can you afford, and then kind of mush all that together. Some of it depends on the shows. When it's a really well-known show, I talked about this on Monday night, like when I did Steel Magnolias, That's an iconic movie. And we had groups of people coming to see the show. And I knew that, absolutely, I'm not going to go back and watch the movie right now because it would be too easy for me to want to start to mimic it. But I knew I had to be respectful of the movie. And so that informed me about things like set and some other things that I knew were really going to be important for the audience to experience. But otherwise, a lot of it for me is I'm not going to use the word script analysis. That sounds way more highfalutin than it is. It just means read the show a lot. And one of the things that I've learned to rely on too is I've learned to doubt my first impression. And what I mean by that is I read the show, but I tend to kind of rush through the first reading just to get a sense of it. But it's the second, third, fourth, fifth reading, but especially plant it in my head and just let it percolate. And that's where things will start to kind of come together, and I'll get a real sense of what I want. But really, I can't overemphasize how it's this joining of script and personnel that help create that sense of, okay, what is this show going to be like? The other thing, though, I've got to say about that is it doesn't matter what I want the show to be like, in a sense. What matters is how the show develops over the 6 weeks. There's been so many times that I've directed something where, because of just the way the group worked and what came up and ideas and so on, that exactly what I wanted kind of ebbed and flowed depending on what people were strong in and all that. And that's one of the things I love about it. I should add quick, then I'll shut up. One of the things I definitely wanted to mention here is I worked with a director a long time ago. And it was very clear from this director that he felt the show was his show. That the show was a reflection of him, he owned it, that the cast was there to do his bidding, to make his show come alive. And I want you to understand that that's exactly the opposite of what I think. Yeah, I'm the captain, or I'm the tour guide, or I don't care what you want to call it. But in the end, it's all of us working collaboratively, pulling on strengths and weaknesses to kind of together figure out what's this going to look like. And so, in terms of figuring out my view for the show, my view for it is, let's figure out what it is when we get there. And as long as I keep everybody on track, which is my job, it usually ends up pretty good. Because that's a really good way to pull strengths out of people and not try to get them to do things that I think they should do but they can't do, or they don't want to do, or they're uncomfortable doing. Rather, it's just this whole synergistic dynamic process. That's the best way I can answer.
I like the tour guide analogy. That's a good one.
Well, sometimes it's herding cats.
Yeah.
I learned it from my main theater professor, who basically sat in the theater and watched, and when people would say, what do you want us to do? He'd say, well, what do you want to do? And he had a lot more, I realized in retrospect, he had a lot more control than I thought he did. But he was extremely good at letting people find the direction that was comfortable for them. And I've really pursued that in my directing.
I'm kind of going to echo Keith a lot here too, of reading the script and getting kind of the very basic building blocks of what you want and what your vision for the show is going to be, but also realizing that throughout this entire process, doing a show is a very fluid thing. And what you perceive and what you read out of the script is going to be totally different 2 weeks from that point, a month from that point. It might even change up until Tech Week. I directed a show back in college, and it was a student project, and the guy kind of rewrote a modernized version of Romeo and Juliet. And so you have these very iconic characters that are supposed to be a very specific way, and we had a huge crowd come in for auditions, and it completely changed what we wanted the show to be. And it completely changed the dynamic going forward. And when you have something like that, this same kid had a poster on his wall in his dorm room that just said "Many artists, one picture," and that was something that I kind of have taken with me going forward in a lot of the directing that I do, because you never know what you're going to get out of any given actor. You may have someone come in who you've seen in 10 shows and they've all been that plucky side character, very like Olaf and LeFou kind of like character, but then they come in and they just blow you away with something completely different. And so I think I'm a little different than these guys, I guess, because I really do like to go and try and find clips of this show. I don't think I've ever watched a show I'm directing from beginning to end, but I try and find at least 3 different versions of a scene from any given show. And more importantly than taking what I like, I take what I don't like. I think 90% of theater people will tell you if they go see a Broadway show, they hit the car and the first thing they're going to talk about is either, how would you cast it if we did it at our theater? I wouldn't have made this choice, or did you see her trip?
We're so judgy as theater people.
Like,
wow.
And so that's kind of, I take things that I don't like and I try and realize that like why I would try and avoid these things, or what made me feel a specific way. Is it just me that's going to feel this way, or is the audience as a whole going to dislike this choice? But I really try and avoid having a set in stone mindset, especially going into an audition process. Set-wise, I feel like a lot of that stuff kind of writes itself once you have the script, especially if you have a static set where there's not a lot of scene changes or anything like that. Which, yeah, they're a lot easier than big shows. But yeah, I have a little bit of a different approach than a lot of directors, because I have the ADHD type that thrives under pressure. And so I was the type of kid in high school that I would procrastinate a 10-page paper until the night before it was due, and I would write a better paper than I ever could if I had taken the 3 weeks to do it. And I really try and rein that in going forward, because I know that can stress a lot of actors out. But at least up until the audition process, I try and keep a really open mind and a really fluid idea of what I want the show to look like.
Yes, for me, a lot of things have already been said. I'm pretty similar with a lot of different aspects here. I like to read the script, get to know the show, get to know the characters. I do some research. I do like to do some Pinterest stuff as well. To look up past productions. I try to look for productions where the stage setup seems similar to what the barn is, so I know what maybe could work for our stage and that kind of stuff. So I like to go in with a general idea of what my vision is. However, I'm also going in prepared for that vision to be completely different than what shows up on stage. And that's generally what happens. There's little nuggets that are the same, but otherwise based off of what works, what doesn't work, what we have for set pieces, what we have for a set, anything like that, what we come up with, what the actors come up with. It's just a very fluid experience, and I like to be very collaborative, yeah.
How often do you guys work with writers, or do like your own writing for like a show?
We have had some people submit original screenplays to our reading committee for us to consider. There's been a couple over the years that people have submitted that were original productions and that kind of stuff. Otherwise, it doesn't happen.
Well, I guess it depends too, because I've been able to help Cole and Bailey out with their summer theater program for the kiddos. This last year we ended up getting a pre-written play and the rights and all that to that, but the year before we ended up writing it for them. And then I've been at other places too as well, and that was also a kids program at the community center in Wilmer, where I had to write my own show and cater towards the actors. But yeah, I guess at the barn I haven't seen it where we've been able to write our own play or work with others.
So there's like not much communication between director and writer?
I guess that depends on the show. And it really comes down to the actor, or I mean, not the actor, the director and the actors. I don't really know the right word for it, but not ambition. I worked with a director in college, and I kind of helped him out. I was assistant stage manager, per se, but we were able to reach out to the playwright ourselves. Like, we made initiative, that's the word I'm looking for. We made the initiative to do that, so then we were able to communicate with him. So if you want to take that initiative and reach out to the playwright, there's nothing stopping you from it.
My interest lies more on like the writing side,
Okay.
the director side. So, but I
Yeah.
was interested in seeing how like the director side of things go.
Yeah, and that really comes down to how you want to do that. I've been in shows, I've acted in shows where the director has brought in the playwrights, and we've been able to talk to them, and as a director, they're able to ask questions. You know, how did you see, when you wrote it in your head, how did you see the scene going out? So that it is really helpful when you do get to talk to the playwrights.
I have had the opportunity to direct a premiere one time, and the author he's published his shows around the country. I think the first thing about writing a show, people don't know how hard it is. Writing a script is very challenging.
Yeah.
And it's extremely hard to get the right dynamic going. And so I hesitate when people say, well, I remember one time when I was honestly on the board here, somebody said, why don't we just write our own shows? Because it's extremely hard to do. And to have them be any good.
That's the key for it. It's got to be good.
And the other thing about writing and trying to do your own show is it becomes very narcissistic, where you're doing what you think is this amazing thing on stage when other people are like, I have no clue what you're doing. And so I really caution about that. And in terms of working with an author, though, had a blast. I was very fortunate, had a blast with it. And I was nervous, really nervous, especially the first time he sat through rehearsal. And I'm just thinking, oh my God, I hope I haven't screwed this up. And there was one place where he disagreed with an interpretation. And it's like, well, you're the author, so what you tell me is what we'll do. And then there was another section that he realized it wasn't working, so he showed up 2 days later with 2 new pages. And the cast then we had to make some adjustments. And luckily we had a dynamic cast that was really into it. It's hard to explain. It was one of the most unique experiences I've ever had. But if you ever have the opportunity to work with a professional playwright that really knows what they're doing, and I should point out, they not only know what they're doing in terms of writing, they know theater well enough so that they don't have, so they understand what can be done, especially in an amateur setting. When you get that dynamic, and it was a hoot. I have to admit, it was a great time. So, yeah, it's fun to do.
With that guy that had written the show, it was a very coordinated effort between the two of us. And it was a lot of fun. Keith had a very similar experience, I think, where there was one spot in the show where I was doing something completely different than what he had intended. And so respecting his wishes and respecting his writing was important to me. And then also from the writing aspect, I've been working on a show for like 6 years, and I'm still nowhere near done. And it's something that I would love to see come to life one day, and maybe here. I think Alan was one of the first people that I ever sent that script to, and I told him that I would love to do it here. But I don't think it happens hardly ever that we have the opportunity as directors to work with the writer of the material that we're working with. But it's something that is really interesting to get to do if we ever have a chance.
Jumping on that, how do you work with the rest of the production team? Set and costumes and props as a director?
With an iron fist. Similar to working with your cast, especially here, the barn has a very strong sense of community. You look at my friend groups, you look at the people who are going to be in my wedding, you look at the person I'm marrying, and most, if not all of them, I met within these walls. And so you learn a lot of people's strengths and you learn their weaknesses, and trying to steer into that And then trying to bridge any gaps that you have in your crew are super important. Whether you have a set designer that is really good at getting walls up and getting the bare bones done, but you need to bring someone in to make these little trickery things happen. For example, for Wait Until Dark, there was a scene where the bad guy throws a knife and our lead, she ducks and it sticks into the wall. And we had to figure out how we're going to do that, because I'm not going to have Rod throw a knife at Bailey.
Every night.
So just kind of, it's a very coordinated effort, and having been in many of those roles, I know that a lack of communication can be extremely frustrating, and it can be a huge detriment to a show. So I guess my biggest piece of advice is if you feel like you're over communicating, you're probably doing it right.
Do you get to pick your production team?
For the most part.
How did you do that?
Pick is a wrong.
I was going to
Yeah.
say, you're giving your...
You have to
Yeah.
find the people
It's not like
to
you
do
have
it.
the selection
Yeah.
of people.
Right.
It's
They're,
one of-
they're like, this is who's doing this, or like, you
Quite
get to
honestly,
choose.
when I get a chance to direct, I almost always reach out to people right away that I want to work with, and that's the way I tend to do it.
And some directors will come into the first production meeting, or some directors will already have a crew lined up by the time they're chosen to do a show.
See, I'm very particular about the people I work with. I'm a little bit of a control freak, something that I've worked on. Directing has helped a lot with that. Yeah, okay. So I really had to scale that back down a little bit. But with picking my production team, I definitely know what works with my style and what doesn't. And when I have somebody on my production team or that I'm working with that does not mesh with my personality, there's a lot of problems that can arise. Or sometimes when someone is a little too close to my personality, that's also a bad thing. I have worked with both opposites. I've co-directed with people before who are very just go with the flow, we don't really need a whole lot, it's okay, I'm gonna sit back. That doesn't work with me. Nope, this set was supposed to be done 2 weeks ago, but it's not done, where is it? We gotta get going. But I've also, on the flip side, worked with other people who, nope, this is how we're doing it. Well, we can't, the costumes don't work with the scene change. Nope, I'm the costumer, this is how it's going. So you have to find that balance and know who you are able to work with well, because when it comes down to it, you're creating the show together, and it's not one person says so or the other person says so. So yeah, I'm gonna take the tour guide. I like that a lot. You're supposed to guide your production team with
I
it.
have a question.
Yeah.
You've been doing all these workshops, you know, for set, for costuming, for stage managing. So people have come to that, maybe you didn't know all of them, and they said, I would like to be a stage manager sometime. So, you know, when people come and volunteer and nobody calls them, it's not always a good thing. So how do you say, well, here's a new person. Yeah, we'd like to have you come. I don't know you. I know this is your first time here, but I, as a director, can help you learn the ropes or whatever. I just feel bad if somebody came to some of these workshops, signed up, and then nobody asked them.
So a lot of that really is word of mouth. And so we've had some people, I'm gonna pick on somebody, sit in the sound booth and they're amazing at it. And you know, you should really get on stage, you should really get on stage, you should try acting. Finally enough people will bug them and they'll get on stage acting, and that is awesome. But a lot of it is other people coming to them saying, you know, you're really good at this, or you have an interest in this, I'm gonna connect you with somebody else. You know, unfortunately, a lot of the times, if I'm directing, I don't know if somebody new wants to try lighting design.
But they must, somebody must know those names that are signed up.
Right, and so,
yeah,
around here we are a very tight-knit community, so it is nice that, you know, this person is friends with this person, or they came to the workshop with that one, so I'm gonna connect you a little bit.
So I can tell you, one way to kind of get your foot in the door is Barn is always looking for volunteers for house manager, usher, things like that. And when you kind of get to know people, get to know what people are looking for, sometimes you get handed a picture and said, here, can you do this makeup? And you're like,
you get thrown
okay.
into it a little bit.
And then all of a sudden you're doing makeup for the barn. So, but that said, it's the more you're seeing and the more you kind of see what is needed, and showing that you're willing to help out by doing ushering and things like that, that goes a long ways here.
It really does. I didn't start out directing. I actually want to start out acting. I went to my first audition. I was told that, nope, this isn't right for you. But hey, you want to come run the light board? So I sat there, I ran the light board, and yeah, I know. different experience. But then I met other people through that who were working at the barn, and hey, I'm directing this next show. I heard you want to act. Come out and audition.
So it's good to
yes,
work to get new people to
yes.
come in.
Mm-hmm.
I always say when I go to a show at the barn and I don't know a soul on stage, I think, yay, that's good.
Yeah, that's a good thing. You
Because
get
if you
people.
go with, the same people,
Yep.
it's so exciting to come and see all kinds of new people that haven't done things before.
I mean, it's no different than here. I mean, I see a lot of people that I don't personally know, but that's amazing. You know, getting in new directors or new playwriters, maybe, hopefully.
There is I'm going to branch off though. There's a bit of a conundrum now and then.
Okay.
And I have used people that came through where they talked to the front office and who talked to me then. It's like, okay, let's give it a shot. One of the things I always get really concerned about with the show is I also want to have a group of people who work well together. And because it's got to be a positive experience for them. And I have to admit, there's been times where someone's come in and I can't remember, I think maybe it was costuming, who wanted to be the costume. I didn't have one. I'm like, fine, that's fine. And this person came in and turned out to be a real problem. And so that's where it gets into this thing of...
It's a risk you take, huh?
Yeah.
Well, it's the unknown.
Yeah.
And of course, you can have that with the cast.
Yes,
you can have
that's
that
what I was
with
wondering too.
and that's where it gets, how much risk do you want to take on this? But I want to emphasize what you said about the communication with production crew. Now, I'm a little different. I came up in technical theater, and so I do my own sets and my own lighting, at least I have. Part of it is I like to joke that production meetings are very easy. I can do them in my head on stage while I'm building. But no, it's that communication thing, and what you said about schedule, absolutely crucial. I mean, I drive people, I'm very planned and structured. And to me, here's the ideal world for me when I'm doing a show, is that the weekend before we hit dress, if I want to be in good enough shape, I can give the cast a day off. And sometimes they get 2 days off because we're in such good shape.
I'm not that nice to my cast.
Well, part of it is I've learned that you get to the point where the rest is more valuable than the time on stage. But does that mean it always happens? Of course not. But same thing, set up deadlines, set up schedules, open communication. Oh, also knowing what battles to fight.
That's a big one.
Because if I've got someone who's in props and comes to me and says, hey, I love this, I think this would be beautiful on the set, I may look at it and go, but you love it, I accept your judgment on this, and that's fine. Or maybe I'm wanting something real specific and they just can't find it, they found something different. I'm not thrilled about it, but it's not their fault. I mean, they're trying. So you got to really think about picking, what battles are worth fighting. And also just being thankful that here they are, working their tail off. Because a lot of this, I've seen people working all by themselves downstairs on costumes. No one's around. They don't always get the enjoyment of the group dynamic that we get to have at rehearsal. You got to be really nice.
Yeah, going off of that, something that I find really helpful is inviting your production team to a rehearsal.
Yeah.
So that they can see how the actors are working with it, they can see how the show is flowing. Maybe not necessarily early rehearsals when you're just starting blocking and memorizing, but when they're off book and they're really going into the show, to have the production team sit there and they can take notes, they can ask questions. It's a rehearsal for the production team, not the actors.
All right, let's jump to auditions. How would you like to conduct auditions? What are you looking for in an actor? How does that change based on who shows up?
Well, you really have to have an open mind. Obviously we're a smaller community and we try our best not to necessarily pre-cast shows. However, you do kind of get to know who is likely going to audition, and after reading scripts and that kind of stuff, you maybe have an idea, well, so-and-so might be good in this role, and so-and-so might be good in this role. So you maybe have an idea, like, if they show up for auditions, they might get this part. However, I've had it happen a couple of times now where I've had ideas in my head of who I'm going to lean towards for casting, and then somebody shows up out of the blue that you've never seen before, and it's like, holy moly, you got it, because that, one, it's a new face, and two, they earned it, they deserve it. I mean, they pull you out of the water. So it's being open to different ideas, and again, having that idea in your head of what you might want, but also being ready to look at something completely different and considering that option. And the other thing that goes with that is when you're having auditions, to make sure to try to see if there's any chemistry with certain characters, certain roles, because that plays a big part in it a lot of times, especially if you're doing a drama and in comedies too. You need to have that good comedic timing with people in comedies. You need to have that good emotional connection when you're doing a drama, that type of thing. So trying to see if there's any of that immediate connection. So that's kind of what I look for with auditions.
And with that, when you do auditions, it really comes down to the style of the director and how you run it. But going off of seeing if there's chemistry or comedic timing between the two, I prefer to do readings from the script. I personally don't like, and like I said, everyone has their own style, so please don't hate me for this, but I don't like when prepare a monologue, come in, stand on the X, okay, leave. Because I don't get to see you work with other people. I also, when I'm looking at an actor and if they're going to work in the show, I look at it outside the audition too. You know, I'm watching them out in the lobby, I'm watching them walk around. Are they a good person? Are they a good fit? Do they have a good work ethic even? You know, are they going to show up on time? Are they going to be there every night that I need them to? Are they going to do extra if I ask them to? I try not to, but it happens. I also talk with other directors too. We all talk to each other. You know, if you have an actor who repeatedly has the same problem in shows or who create issues, I'm going to lean against like casting them for acting, whether they're the most incredible person and they should be on Broadway. I don't want problems in my show. I want it stress-free, I want it fun, I want to produce a good show. So I'll refrain from casting them.
I'm glad you brought that up. I totally agree. When actors get bad reputations, you know, because I can't poison the cast. And it's not fair. It is not fair to all those other people involved to have a prima donna on stage. This doesn't work.
It brings the whole show down. So.
It makes those 6 to 8 weeks. Put it this way, if all you can think about is thank God when this will be done,
Yep.
Yeah.
then
Not doing it right.
you got a problem. Yeah, you got a problem.
Auditions are towards the top of my favorite part of the entire process. And I was lucky enough to be able to be the casting director for Arsenic and Old Lace. And so being able to be a part of one of my favorite processes and then be able to just drop it and it's not my problem anymore was a lot of fun for me. But yeah, kind of going off of what Dominique said, I mean, you audition from the time you walk through the door, and sometimes even beforehand. I'm directing children's theater. If there's a kid out there and they're running around the lobby and they're being really disruptive while I'm trying to be in here working with the other kids, that's a red flag for me that you're going to be doing that backstage when I need your attention on me.
It's even worse when an adult is doing that.
Oh, and you would be so surprised. It's kind of a battle with yourself to figure out logistically how you want to run your auditions. And being an actor first and a director second, I have had the ability to audition for a bunch of different directors, and I know what I enjoyed and what my castmates enjoyed from different audition processes. So I've kind of plucked how I run my auditions from a bunch of different directors. And kind of, I do enjoy allowing you to bring in your own material. Because I love to see you at your best. Especially, I've sat on casting panels for musicals. I've never directed musicals, but I've been a part of the casting process. And they were really against letting our audition people bring in their own music, and I really fought hard because I want to see what you bring. If I pick a song that's not flattering to you vocally, but you can blow me out of the water with something else, I want to see that. But you're also going to sing the song that's from the show. You're going to read from the script and really get those chemistry reads. I love callbacks too because that's really fun. Because then you can really hammer, do these two work well together? Do these two have good comedic timing? And I think this community has a really strong base of actors. So auditions can be really difficult. And it's a good problem to have, but it's a problem nonetheless. And so I think one thing I really try and hammer into people's heads too is that you can be a fantastic actor, but you are awful at auditioning. And that's okay. Because kind of what these guys have been saying is that your reputation follows you. And vice versa. You can be great and have wonderful auditions, but having worked with that person, having been in shows, having directed that person, I know that once they're in there for the long haul, it's like pulling teeth. And you can be a fantastic actor and not fit a role. There's just going to be actors who have their niche and they do it better than anybody else. But if I'm looking for something different, you might not get a part of that show. And that's okay. And that's something that it is kind of hard to communicate when you really want to cast someone specific, but you can't.
I think how you do this is that I remember the first time I was in a show, which was 100 years almost. No, just 1982. And but I remember coming, and most of the people seemed to know each other, and I didn't know anyone. And it was like nobody hardly acknowledged that I was there. Well, boy, just like that, you feel like an outsider. And I remember, to this day, after all these years, sitting there. In fact, the script called for a young boy, and I had 3 young boys at home, so I drug one of them with me, saying, "Are you sure you don't, maybe you want to audition for this role?" He didn't audition, but I think he knew he had to hold my hand. And we sat there, and finally the director said, "Did you want to audition?" I thought, I've been sitting here for an hour. And so, what do you do? Because it's easy. We all know each other. We want, I haven't seen you for so long. It's only natural to act that way. But then somebody's sitting off in
The people that need the least auditioning are the ones I know really well. And so, in that very scenario, I always try to start with the people I don't know.
Okay.
And get them reading first. Okay. And then I'll sprinkle in the people that, let's be honest, I know what they can do. Okay? I don't need to hear them read 5 times. I still want to give them an opportunity, the experienced ones, but that's the way, I know exactly what you're talking about. That's the way I try to deal with that. Let's get the people at least that I don't know, let me get them going early so they can read several times so I can hear them in a number of different roles. Yeah. And the thing is, the people that know me, they know exactly what I'm doing. They know that I am favoring the new people just because I do know what the experienced ones I've worked with before, they know that I know what they can do. And so, that's a great thing to bring up, but that's how I deliberately try to deal with it, is get the people that you don't know involved first, or early, and then and let the old-timers sit for a bit.
Yeah.
See, I think that there's a fine line, there's a balance that has to be done with, as a director in that position. You want to make sure that, that's horrible that you sat there for an hour and you weren't even asked if you were auditioning.
Maybe it wasn't that long, but it seemed like it.
Right. So I think it's important as a director to go up and say, hey, here's my little introduction, this is auditions, if you're auditioning, that's awesome, here's how it's going to go down. But as a director, I also like to sit back and kind of watch it, because I think that is going to play a really big role. We're talking about chemistry when you're reading a script.
Yeah.
Well, you're with your fellow actors and production team and director for 6 weeks at a time. You might only be on stage with them for 20 minutes, but you're sitting in the audience waiting with them for 2 hours, and the relationship that you build off stage is going to also help translate on stage. So if I'm a director, and let's take this for example, I know exactly who knows who in this room. You know, I could pair you off, and you know you, and you know you. Nobody's intermixing now. You know, there's a whole middle section there that's just empty. So as a director, I'm going to look at it and go, okay, well that group would work really well together, and that group would work really well together. Are they going to mesh together? I'm going to see who kind of branches off and makes that bridge and that connection of, hey, you're new here. It's nice to see you. That's going to help out both. So I think that there's a balance between finding that and acknowledging them as a director, but also letting it sit back and organically happen as well.
One thing I like to do too, I agree with everything everybody said here, is, but after we've done a little bit of reading so people are at least familiar with the segments we're reading, you know. Then once in a while, then I'll try to throw them a little directorial thing, like maybe speed it up, or I can't think of a specific right now, but something that I'm asking them to do that's very simple, just to see how do they respond to some guidance. And I tend to respond pretty well to that. But it's a way to kind of get a feel for, okay, is what I'm hearing you read the only thing I'm ever going to get from you? Or do you have the ability to try different things? It's just what I'm looking for. But I want to emphasize, I think, Cole, you mentioned it, there are actors who cannot read hardly at all. Some, you know, they just sound really bad reading, because actors don't read. I mean, they recite, they memorize. There's other ones who read absolutely beautifully, but again, that's all you're ever going to get. And that's just the judgment call.
I wanted to just, based off of having new people come in and audition, when I am auditioning for a show, if I see new people that are auditioning that I don't know, I try to go out of my way to introduce myself to them and welcome them and try to make them feel as comfortable as possible, because we're in the same boat at that point. We're auditioning, and it's a nerve-wracking experience, or it can be.
The nerves never get better.
Right. So I try to, hey, welcome to the barn. Is this your first show? Get to know their history, that type of stuff, and try to make them comfortable. And when you're doing auditions as the director, I try to do that as much as I can. I try to get to know them a little bit before auditions actually start and give them a little rundown of what to expect and that type of thing, and hopefully try to get them a little more at ease.
See, but Alan's just kind of the mascot at the barn. Everybody knows him, so it kind of works out that way.
You might not even know who's new, or maybe they've just been gone for a few years.
Right. Yeah.
The other thing I find really important too is get everybody like in a group, in a circle, make it a highly participative thing.
Yeah.
I've been involved with auditions where the director's in the back of the room, and you know, they never say a word, and they're always writing notes, and they're looking at you with very serious, and that's just no fun. You know, I love to sit like this, just put everybody in a circle, and then maybe we'll get up for a little bit, stand but very casual, very informal. I mean, we got to remember what we are here, folks. We're amateur theater.
Right.
You know?
Community.
Yeah, what we are. I mean, amateur community theater. We're a very good one, but that's what we are. And the reason people do this is this thing called fun. And if we're not providing that, we're not doing it right.
How are the directors actually picked for each production?
So every year we have a reading committee of how many people?
This year we've had a pretty big committee. It's like 12 to 15.
So it's a volunteer committee. Alan's actually the chair of it. And they sit down every year. They take submissions from the general public, from our patrons, from the directors who have worked here before. I think this last year, like just speaking from personal experience, I think I submitted like 6 shows. And so if one of them gets picked for this next season, they would probably approach the person who submitted it and then be like, hey, do you want to direct this? If I say, no, I don't want it, I just want to see it here at the barn, or I want to be in it, then at that point they will open it up, and then directors can submit letters of intent. And from that point, the front office will kind of go through and choose our directors from that point.
On that note, your front office people are your best friends. Ashley and Naomi, as a director, you go to them with so many issues and they will help you through it. So keeping that line of communication open is crucial. It is vital for a successful show. There's a lot of problems that come up when you're directing. Ashley's just gonna shake it off. And you can think like, oh, I gotta handle this, I have to figure this out. But you have help. You have people who know how to approach the situations. they've been through it before, more than likely, or they're going to be able to help you through. So make sure that your communication with them is open as well.
So first-time directors want to become a director. Do they need to be an assistant first so you, the people, know what's this person like? Do we really want them to direct a show?
I believe you have to stage manage before you can direct a show. It's kind of like the format that we've used, and you can co-direct.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or if you've done it at another theater, I believe that can translate as well over here. So they know that you have experience in
If
it.
somebody comes in with a big portfolio of credentials, they still have to stage manage? I mean, maybe they live...
Not particularly. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
like for instance, we had a couple summers ago, we had a director who had a laundry list of shows that he had directed, and he had a point of contact through the barn, and he came in and directed the show. So it's kind of...
I'm glad to hear that.
But if you've only ever been an actor, I started out acting at the barn.
Exactly.
I had to co-direct with somebody else.
Yeah, that's great.
To kind of get the system down and know what's going on, to get the experience before I could go off by myself.
All right, let's, how do you schedule rehearsals? Is there an app, is there software you use to help you? How do you handle all the conflicts for all of your actors? How flexible are you?
Well, first of all, you have to ask about conflicts on the night of auditions, because that can make a world of difference. The only software thing that I would ever do is maybe a Google Doc, or actually a lot of texting stuff is what I would do. One of the things that I do for my rehearsals is we rehearse Sunday night through Thursday night, and which is a little bit different. And the reason for that is, if we do, we're still getting 5 nights, but most people, if we're going to go out of town for the weekend, they're back by 5 o'clock on Sunday. So to come to a rehearsal at 6 o'clock usually is not a big problem. And that way, at least for a few weeks, it gives people more of a weekend. And then otherwise, just scheduling it, you learn over time how to break things down. There's this thing called French scenes, and it's just a theater term. It means you break the show down according to who's on stage at any given time. And so you don't necessarily go by scene 1, scene 2, scene 3, or these French scenes. It's kind of hard to describe because it's almost as you got to feel your way through it a little bit. I will say this, though, for me at least, because, again, I want things planned. Normally, the night of read-throughs, I double-check conflicts. But within literally a day or two, they're going to get a schedule for the entire thing, all the way through strike. I might have a few days that are TBA, because I realize that there are some sections that are maybe more complicated than I realized. But otherwise, these people are busy. They need to have these schedules. I mean, it's important for all of us.
And as a parent, I really appreciate getting that right away. Just saying.
Scheduling is the biggest headache.
Did you say you have the schedule after you've already picked your cast, or do you have it at auditions so people even know, do I want to audition? Because
You do both.
okay.
And I do both. I'll have a tentative schedule that I can even show them the night of auditions. And then once I get conflicts in, then I have to go back and make adjustments and all that stuff.
I think it's also really important to look at your schedule for the actors as well. It's like I said, it's a really big headache and a lot of back work on the director. But I don't want to have, let's say, an actor who's in 2 scenes sit there all night and never get on stage. They get frustrated. I feel bad. They get frustrated. Granted, that's going to happen every now and then. But to try and avoid that conflict is super important. It's a lot less stress on that later down the road. I also know scheduling, particularly when you're working with children, that's a challenge. That's an extra added challenge when you're doing kids shows. A lot of the times there's no control with the kid. The kid will come up to me. I've had kids before. It's tech week and they go, "Oh, I'm going to be gone the last day before the show. My parents taking me out of town." It is really hard in that moment to not look at the kid and go, "What are you doing? You were supposed to be here," because it's not on the kid, it's on the parent. So making sure that you are able to send out the schedule and you get confirmation from the parent themselves, whether they're 16 years old or 6 years old, so that the parent knows they have to be here. There is not the option to miss a day of the show or a tech day.
And sometimes it doesn't matter.
Unfortunately, yep.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever walked into an audition process without a fairly set schedule. And it changes. There's been shows where I get 7 of my cast members have the same conflict, and so we just won't have rehearsal that day. But I think about 85% of my schedule that I had at auditions stays true for the whole run of the show. And different directors like different schedules. I've had directors where it's Monday through Friday, 6 to 9. I've also had directors where it's Monday through Thursday, we start at 6, if we get done at 7, we leave. If we get done at 10:30, then that's fine. It really depends, but I really like to come in with this set expectation, and I really try and stay to what I have on my schedule, especially when I'm working with kids. And then, yeah, kind of trying to block it off into this night I need these actors, this night I need these, because as an actor, there's nothing worse than sitting in the back of the theater on your phone for 4 hours. It is the most frustrating thing, and so like I understand that, and especially working with kids, again, if they look at the schedule and they're not needed for 2 weeks, that bums them out, but I would rather have you here and be productive for those few nights that I do have you here, versus you're going to be here causing problems in the back because you're bored, and I can't fault you for that. So making sure that with you pretty much always have, these are mandatory rehearsals, you have that at auditions. So if you have a conflict this night, I don't know what to tell you because we have an audience. I can't cast you. And sometimes I ran into that fairly recently, casting a show where we had someone we were considering for our lead come in, and they had a conflict the night before opening where we have an audience. And they made it work so that we were able to avoid that. But it's just kind of, again, that open communication and then setting those expectations early.
I also think it's important though as a director to, like you're saying, it's mandatory you have to be here, but giving grace with it.
Yeah.
You're going to know who is legitimately trying to be there and, you know, they had a family member pass away, or they have this health problem going on, or they all of a sudden have to be out of town for whatever reason. Knowing that it's unavoidable, there's nothing you can do, and you can't fault the actor for it, because again, we're a community theater, it's not professional, the actors aren't getting paid, you have to remember that they're doing this for enjoyment and they want to be here.
Life
most of the
happens.
time. Exactly, yeah.
And you want to foster, you want to be here.
Exactly, yes,
You know, with
exactly.
the environment and
Yes.
everything. But another thing about that too would be, I like what you said about, I too am kind of let's take rehearsal as long as we need it for the night, but no later than a certain time.
Yeah.
You know, but also during that time period, I work them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if someone's driven from Painesville to be in a show, I want them to leave that rehearsal feeling like I went from point A to point B in terms of progressing in this production, and not, like you said, sitting around or just watching or whatever. Yeah, you need to work, make them work while they're here so they feel that sense of progression.
It was really nice for, like, Matilda, that my kiddo was in, because it was like, all right, this group here is working on singing,
Yeah.
this group is dancing, this is and so they could all be here working on things, but in different areas.
Yep, and that came down to a lot of pre-planning of, so I did choreography for that show, and it was Mary, the director, our choreographer, and we sat there, we grabbed vocals, and hey, I'm going to grab this kid, I'm going to do it here. A lot of pre-planning went into that, but it worked really well because, especially with kids, when they get bored, they act up, they run around, they play tag, they got phones blaring, and they're a distraction, so you want to keep them working.
Yeah. I just plan on, if Caden, my son's going to audition, I just block my whole schedule from auditions to the strike. We'll figure it out.
Mom there, she's like, I got this.
If he gets a part, then there we go. If not, then I can start making plans.
I think you learn pretty quickly being involved in the show. Almost becomes a second job because you're here a lot. And I feel like as a director, it's also your responsibility to watch your cast and make sure that they still are enjoying being here. I remember pretty vividly there was one night during Wait Until Dark rehearsal We had about a half hour left, and Alan and I looked at each other, and we were like, I don't want to be here tomorrow. They don't want to be here tomorrow. And we gave them the night off the next night because we knew that it wasn't going to be productive. And so having that, being able to make that conscious decision and having like the insight into your cast and being like, you guys are exhausted, you guys need to sleep, and you guys just need to go blow off steam. I don't know what you need to do, but you need to not be here.
I know I always appreciate too, if I've been in a show, that if it says come at 6 o'clock, that it's not 7 o'clock and you still haven't started.
Right.
You know, that is, because you, like you say, you give that time, and I would rather come, get started, going, and work hard while you're here. Like
And that comes on the director getting that, like you have a schedule within your schedule. You have your schedule of these nights we're rehearsing, but then as a director, okay, the first 15 minutes every day is warm-ups. This is what we're doing for warm-ups. We're going to stretch, we're going to sing, we're going to do this, then we're going to get started. So starting that from the beginning helps a lot because it also gets people into that routine of, okay, it's 6 o'clock, I'm going to start stretching. So I'm ready to go, we're going to start the show at 6:30, or we're going to start blocking at 6:30.
I had a director who would make me do push-ups for every minute I was late.
I've had directors.
I don't know about that.
I've
I
had
was also
directors.
consistently late.
There you go.
I was the only one who did that.
I've had directors that scheduled rehearsal to start at 6 and they wouldn't show up till 6:30.
Ooh.
Beyond frustrating.
Well, what people don't realize about stuff like that too often is we pick up very quickly on when do things really start. And if you're always starting at 6:20 when rehearsal's supposed to start at 6, within a matter of days, no one's going to be there till 6:18.
Yeah.
And then it's going to get pushed back even more.
And if you try to say, well, guys, we need to start at 6, well, really? Are you really going to do that?
Yeah.
You know. And so, no, you got to be pretty anal about it from day one, which is easy for me. Is that you?
Well, how do you handle blocking, choreography, scene changes, that kind of stuff?
Make it look pretty. That's what it boils down to.
I think that's a lot of on the style of the director. I've worked with both directors, I've been both directors, where you let the actors, it's usually easier with a smaller cast. So if you have, 3 or 4 people, you can put them on stage and go, okay, you're experienced actors, we're gonna run this scene, just run it for me. Okay, I liked when you did that turn, we're gonna keep that, but you're actually gonna come from this way. So letting them kind of feel organically how it's gonna happen and tuning into, again, physicality of what's comfortable for them and what's not comfortable. But I've also worked and been on the other side of it as a director where you have to give them very specific blocking notes because they have no clue. Maybe they're inexperienced or it's a different type of show or they're working with a very large cast where even the scene changes have to be so choreographed because you have little space to move around. You have very quick scene changes or very quick costume changes. And I think it's important to remember that blocking isn't just necessarily on stage, it's also backstage. In big musicals, you have to go, okay, I need 2 people or 2 actors who aren't doing anything to go help this person. They have 10 seconds to be back on stage and they have to completely change their costume. So in the beginning of rehearsals, taking that time to do the blocking on stage, but then towards the end, making sure that you remember to follow through on that blocking and the scene changes. I think that that's really important.
I like to have my blocking written out before, obviously before we start rehearsals. I'll go through the script and do my little notes and my blocking notes, that type of thing. But I'm also prepared to completely erase all that, and by the time what's on the show, again, it's something different than what I have written. Because I like to have my characters or my actors, I like it to be organic as well. And if we're doing something and they're like, that doesn't feel right, I'll be like, well, what do you think feels more natural for your character? And they'll do, all right, let's keep that then. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. So it's being open to those suggestions. And and then when you're dealing with choreography and pit and all the other people, usually when I'm working with a choreographer, I'll just let them do their thing. I'll be like, I'll come to the rehearsals and give some input if they ask me, but that's their area of expertise. So I'm like, this is kind of what I was thinking. You go ahead and run with whatever the music throws at you, you just go ahead and do it. So I've been lucky with that.
Giving that general idea that was really helpful because, like as a choreographer working with a director, when they're able to sit there and go, Well, this is kind of the feel I had for this song. I really think that this big ending would just throw a kid in the air, whatever it may be,
Right.
you know, giving that, but not being too specific. I think that's really nice as a director to do that.
I think it's good to let a cast know why you're doing something. So for example, just because I'm a retired professor, my academic background deals a lot with stuff related to theater. And, you know, for example, I might say, I'm going to have you guys come together in this moment, but as the tension rises, I'm going to have you pull apart. And I'll explain why I'm doing that. Or sometimes it's as simple as, because the stage is imbalanced, we need more people over here. Or it could be, I was just thinking this term like zone blocking, where I'll say, look, what I'm aiming for is kind of starting here, working our way down here. Let's run it a couple of times. You guys kind of do what you think, and then we'll just slowly start to come and do what works. But I find that telling the actors why I want them to do something is extremely important many times. Helps them know what's going on.
How do you feel about actors challenging you when you're trying to give them directing or blocking notes?
I appreciate it. I mean, I don't, as long as it's done in a respectful manner, not like, well, that's stupid, well, whatever. But like, if it, you know, if it's done like, well, hey, I feel like my character would maybe say it this way or do X, Y, Z. I'm open to like, well, let's try it. Let's see how it looks. Let's
If they
give
can
it a shot.
defend their character and the reason why,
Right.
more power to you.
Yeah.
I mean,
It goes back to the pick your battles.
yeah.
One time though, I remember being in a show on stage and the director sitting out here and this other director, I should call him a director, this other character is directing.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, this has got to stop. You know, I mean, I'm sure you've all run into that.
It's kind of a balancing act because you never want it to become a power struggle.
Yeah.
And if it's getting to that point, it's important for you to have an open line of communication with that specific person and be like, hey, you just need to have that difficult conversation.
Right. And then
But-
keep going. Move on.
Right. And then on the same, on the same topic, it's really nice to know if I'm having you do something, whether it's you're uncomfortable with this, I really don't want you to do that. Whether it just feels wrong, I want you to explore what you feel is more natural. Or there was something, I don't remember the exact instance, but Alan and I both had a very similar block for Wait Until Dark. And Bailey's like, why would I do that? I'm blind. And we both were like, oh, yeah, don't do that. So it's.
There's another part to this too, is that sometimes giving that group of actors, I've had this several times where something needs to be figured out. I know that I'm going to get there. I'm not worried about it. But they start kind of talking, oh, we could do this, or we could do this. And I'm thinking, guys, we can deal with this later, but I stop and realize this is a good bonding moment. Let them work on this.
If you do it together.
Yeah. And then
one person is telling
Right.
everybody on stage.
well, and anytime you get a cast that's working collaboratively, having moments to let that run for a little bit, let that happen. And even though in my head I may know that I know exactly where this is going to land, but let's let them get to that point. Or they will come up with something like, well, duh, I never thought of that.
Yeah. And sometimes they see something you don't.
Yeah.
It's just,
So I'm curious on what your guys' approach to this is. Moving around during the blocking stage, I have this horrible habit of I will block this entire show, it looks awesome, and then I'll switch spots because you know how the barn is set up, you got your middle section, your side section, your other side, and I'll go move to the top left and I go, I can't see that important moment, that where like I have a stage kiss going on. Well, I can clearly see that that's a stage kiss and not a kiss. Okay, so now we're this far into the rehearsal process. I am so sorry, actors, we have to change this blocking. So I've had to work on that a lot. I don't know, do you guys move around a lot?
Yeah,
absolutely.
You have to make sure everybody's getting a similar kind of site. I mean, it's going to be a little bit different, but kind of getting the same general idea.
Kind of a variation on that is whether or not you should ever go on stage to show them what to do. And part of that is because there's kind of the idea that I don't want an actor mimicking me. I want them to do something that feels right, that seems motivated. So once I've told them cross down right, to this point, they're going to incorporate how it fits with their line and their character and all that. So if I go down and say, no, I want you to move exactly here this way, now they're just imitating me. They're not doing really what feels right to them. And so sometimes I do it because I can't explain it well enough. That's my fault. But I also try to stay at the stage is their space. You know, let them have it.
And that goes down even to line delivery as well.
Oh, that's
You've
a big
never,
one.
like, personally, I never want to tell an actor how to deliver a line.
Yeah.
You know, I might help guide them, like, do you think that maybe it should be a little bit louder? And all of a sudden, they hit it exactly how I wanted, where they're just screaming it because they're so mad. But I never want to go, this is how you're going to say a line, repeat it word for word after me, exact inflection, exact emotion. Because then it's just not organic and they're repeating the line.
If you wanted to do that, be in the show.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm very new, but based on what you're talking, is blocking essentially when you've set, this is what we're doing?
In the movement
Yeah.
on stage.
We jumped right over that. So sorry.
Well, I said everyone's talking like blocking. It's like, I don't know what blocking is, but I'm
Yeah.
starting to get a picture.
I was when I first started doing some of them, I was like, I've never heard the term blocking before. What the heck does that mean? And then that's when you get the basic movements of the scene down from the other director. Be like, okay, we want you to enter from this way, come down to the center stage, whatever, stand here, then you move over here, things like that. The basic movements on stage.
Thank you for bringing that up as well, too. I think that's important for directors, especially when you start your rehearsal process. If you have inexperienced actors, or maybe actors who have only done 1 or 2 shows, or they've only done a musical, or only done a straight play, and are doing vice versa now, making sure that they understand what you're talking about. Even stage directions. We've all done theater for so long, we know stage left is actually our right, you know, but if you have a kid or somebody who's just started, they're not going to know that, and a lot of times they get too scared to ask that, or if they ask that, I've seen directors where they go, well, that's your right, and it makes them feel stupid, and they shut down, and it affects the entire rehearsal process from there. So making sure that was our bad, we just kind of skipped right past it. Making sure you don't assume that everybody knows all of the theater terminology and all the fancy words and what they mean.
It's easy to forget sometimes that slang is slang.
Yeah.
It is really, really all it is.
But the cool thing is you're introducing them to it, and they become part of that family now because they can speak the language. And so don't back off from using it. Teach them what it is.
Yeah, for sure.
And then say, come, welcome to our world now. You can now talk. Yeah, that's really cool.
Is there anything you avoid doing or using during shows, like props that you refuse or don't like to use? Any kind of movement style that you try to avoid?
I got something I want to bring up kind of related to it. And that are,
He's ready.
no, and it's not a problem. Scene changes. I detested scene changes because to me scene changes have always been let's stop the damn show, switch things around. I've been very fortunate. I've seen a lot of professional productions, and I was at one in New York, and in the scene change, things went dim. They actually, it's kind of hard to explain. They did a scene during the scene change.
Yeah.
And what was so cool was that you watched all this, and before you knew it, the scene change was done, and it happened to fit the show where the way the next scene started was relevant to this person having come in and then left. And that really, it just opened my eyes that scene changes, and maybe everybody else does this, and I'm the newbie at it, scene changes many times, not always, can be so much better incorporated into the overall flow of the production. Now, sometimes all you can do is the classic dim light, crew comes out, changes everything. Sometimes that's the only option. But it's amazing if you use your imagination, just how much smoother, how more integrated, how much more it flows. I've been to my share of shows, I bet everybody here has, where it's just like they just go on forever, getting the scene changed. Now, some of that is design, some of it's a set, some of it's any number of things, but that has probably been the biggest change in my directing in the last 5 years, is trying to incorporate that and make it flow so much better. Now, musicals, that's easy to do. I'm talking about dramas and comedies, where you don't have that kind of a natural flow throughout the show. So that's my quick answer.
Where we in the audience sit in the dark, sit in the dark, sit in the dark, sit in the dark.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, now what was going on? You know, you almost lose the train of play if it's too long.
You can
too dark.
even kind of choreograph the scene
Yeah,
change to make
right,
it interesting.
exactly.
You know, have them watch it. There's just so many cool things. I remember the first time I did some of this with the cast here, and I even explained exactly what I was trying to do, and it threw them off. It's like, well, wait a minute, you mean I'm supposed, as an actor, you mean I'm supposed to do it? Yeah, you are. Trust me, trust me, trust me. And once we got it all rolling, then they began to see what I was doing, and they could just see how this show flowed so much better. And it's just, it can be really cool. It can be really cool. They props you, things you
Did you
don't.
forget the question?
I
Dogs.
forgot.
Okay.
I would say little kids, but they do that.
Anything you avoid using during shows, avoid doing? Things that maybe caused you trouble in the past, or you worry about safety, or things that are messy?
See, I guess I've never, I don't go into a show going, I'm never going to use this prop, or I'm never going to have this happen, because you got to keep an open mind. It's theater, things change. I guess as directors, we all have our personal preferences as to what we prefer or what we don't prefer. I don't like real food on stage. I think it's messy. It is a headache to get and make sure that you have it set beforehand and after, and okay, well, this coffee's old, so now we got to go back early and make more coffee for the scene.
Or it molds.
Exactly. Okay. So, like, I have that preference to not use real food. If a scene calls for it and it is crucial to the play, the playwright has to have food in the scene, I'm going to put food in the scene. So I guess I don't go into it going, I'm never going to use this.
I was gonna say something similar with the real food aspect. Like,
It's tricky.
it can get really tricky. Because when we did Diary of Anne Frank, we had a lot of moldy strawberries and stuff like that. But yeah, it's just. But that's more making sure that your stage manager is on top of switching things out and that kind of stuff too. But yeah, otherwise I try not to say I would never. I would be more on the never certain subject matter type stuff, but not. I would never use a certain prop, or unless it doesn't make sense on in the stage or in the staging of a show or something. Because during Elf, one rehearsal, they decided to bring out an actual pony on a stick that did not make sense in the scene, and being the director and the audience, I was not really impressed with that they chose to make that choice without consulting me first.
Did you say something?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
I definitely did, because it was still a rehearsal, so I could still.
Oh, it was rehearsal.
Yeah,
Oh, we
it
had
was,
an audience.
It was an audience. It was a sponsor night, so I was less than impressed. But anyways,
I maybe was there.
you made me work.
You saw the horse on a stick.
Yeah. Anyways, but so that kind of stuff does happen too. But yeah.
But
Is there a list of do's and don'ts for first-time directors? So I was chatting with you at the beginning that I'm doing my first play. It was with the high school kids or whatever, but I did enough research. You can't change any words in the line in the script, but one of the lines is savage, and I don't like that word, and is that okay to change one word? And what kind of sound effects are allowed? Or music, these are things I'm still kind of fleshing out to make sure I'm still being true to the playwright, but also, what can I do to enhance the play and have creative license?
I think that's the key, is making sure you honor the script and its intention. I've seen this with a lot of directors. They don't like this word. They don't like that this scene is happening. They chose the show. It is important. I might not necessarily agree with how it's said, or if they called this person a really mean name, but it is important to the script. And so making sure that you honor that it's a fine line, and also you have the rights and royalties where the playwright wrote it the way that they did. So switching words gets a little bit in that gray area. If it's one or two words, as a director, I'm comfortable with. My actor isn't necessarily comfortable. Let's find a word that's similar but has the same meaning but isn't that word. Then I give a little leeway with that, but that's just me personally.
Don't you have to be careful with fines and infringements?
You do.
You guys
Yes.
be careful with what the actual contract says and that kind of stuff. There's a lot of legalities in it. If we have any questions with that, usually we're lucky we have Ashley that we go, Ashley, what does the contract say?
Yeah.
about this?
Can we do it? Can we not?
We have to look at
Change
the
this.
Check the fine
Musicals
print.
are dramatically more restrictive.
Yep.
With
For sure.
stage plays, you're supposed to do all the words, but really anything beyond that. The only one tricky thing when you mention music, if it's a non-musical, you do have to be a little careful because all music's copywritten unless it's in public
Yeah.
domain.
Yep.
So even playing a song is, unless you, because here we do have the license, right? Yeah.
Well, I feel like schools have a license too for
Yeah,
that.
right.
As long as they've got that, you should be
And
fine.
as a high school, you have a little bit more leeway. If you go up to a professional or semi-professional theater, you're gonna have a lot more people watching. Playwrights are gonna know if their material was changed. I'm not saying like go ahead and change the whole show in
No,
high
and
school, but
I'm
it's
not.
a little bit.
And I'm not, but, I mean, I'm like, are there other things that I don't know that I don't know? You know?
I think the biggest thing is just making sure that the very basics of theater are being done. Like, never turn your back to the audience while delivering a line. If you're having a conversation with someone, instead of facing that person, you're going to kind of cheat out at like a 45-degree angle so that your sound carries. Just kind of things like that. And then as far as, the copyright stuff goes, it really depends on your contract. And then publishers are obviously going to have a lot more leeway with a school or amateur theater than they would if it was a professional production. But
And unfortunately, a lot of the things you just have to learn the hard way. Because even directing multiple times, you're going to make a mistake and it's going to affect the show, it's going to affect licensing or whatever it may be, and you're going to run into these roadblocks, you're going to create trouble. Okay, I know not to do that next time, let's move on from it.
Something I would say too, more a little philosophically, is I don't care if it's directing or lighting or costumes or set, it doesn't matter. Anything that happens in that show gets projected onto the cast. So if something doesn't work with the set, the lights, the costumes, the audience, most of them are not going to sit there and think about, oh, the costume designer did a poor job. They're going to say, that cast member looks stupid. And one of the things that I've always assured casts of is that I will do everything I can to make them look good on stage. And I stand by that. And I remember when I taught theater, I would rail on students that work behind the scenes that would miss doing some cue thing, a sound effect or whatever, and they would laugh it off. And I said, no, you just stranded somebody on stage. You did about the worst thing you could possibly do. So any of that, and that's why I take that responsibility really strongly, is what may seem like this funny, oh, ha, ha, somebody missed something. In the meantime, you're working with high school people. You've got a 10th grader who's on stage the first time who people are laughing at, not with. And so from a director standpoint, to me, it's your responsibility to do absolutely everything, that none of that will ever happen. And you can't do it all, but you got to try.
Like traditions or like superstitions that you guys follow too?
Yeah, everyone does.
Yeah, but what are you guys' like singular stuff or something that you've noticed if you don't do this, you kind of have like a wonky show or like something seems off because you didn't do that?
Someone did mine the other day. I did spin around 3 times instead.
Oh.
See?
See, and I don't buy any of those.
the Scottish tragedy.
That's what he did.
I'll say Macbeth.
No!
No.
It's fine. We're not
in the theater.
Yeah, he said it in the theater.
You don't say good luck, do you?
No, I do stick with break a leg.
Yeah.
I think it's more so ha-ha funny superstitions. It's never, I guess I've never worked in a show, never done a show where, nope, we have to do this. You guys all have to walk 4 steps to the right before the show, otherwise everything's going to go haywire. I've never done that, but yeah, it's the silly little superstitions of, don't say the Scottish tragedy, because otherwise everything's going to go wrong.
I think
Well, I
everyone.
saw a
It's more
production
fun.
of Macbeth on Broadway that sucked. So I had no trouble saying Macbeth.
That's because they probably said it in rehearsal.
Yeah, probably, once in a while.
We did Shakespeare Bridge and we kept saying McDonald's until the play.
I do have a tradition, though.
You got to caution with that, though, because if you get actors where we're not going to say this or we're not going to do that during rehearsal, we're not going to do it till the show, You guys might have slipped up and said
Oh,
McDonald's
no.
instead during the
Yeah,
show.
he was a really good actor. He had it down.
All
Actually,
right.
he changed it, I think, every night. Like it was McDonald's or
That's a lot of
Mary.
very
I don't know. Yeah.
That is a great point, by the way. When you're rehearsing and people are trying to get their lines down and they keep messing up, going, ah, shit. I keep telling them, don't do that.
Yeah.
All you're doing is training yourself to say it.
Right.
So when you're on stage and it's performance. I actually do have a serious one in terms of that tradition. I make a big deal at about final dress rehearsal of turning the show over.
Yeah.
I'm done. And I let them know that. I'm now done. I turn, and I've got the stage manager there. You know, let them know the stage manager's in charge. And this person's been ready for this. I tell my stage managers from day one that this is going to be your show. And I make it clear to the cast and everybody that I am finished. And that's a very serious moment for me. So that's my tradition.
Yeah, I guess if we're going with traditions, I got to give credit because it wasn't my tradition to start with, but a couple years ago I was in a show as an actor, and before the show, the very last rehearsal before we had an audience, yeah, it was insane. Cole was in that show too. The director sat us down and he went one by one. Like, you as an actor, this is what I really enjoy. You're amazing at this. You're great at that. I'm excited to see this. And so to take that one-on-one individual and single them out, but in a positive way,
Yeah.
I mean, just individually, that was, wow, he noticed that. That was awesome. I've been working really hard on that. And even as a cast, when you sit there and listen, like, yeah, Alan was really good at delivering that one line. That was awesome. He does that every single night. He's on time. You know, so I took that tradition, and now I do that when I direct shows, even when I choreograph. I'll sit them down the last time I have them in a rehearsal and go, you were amazing. You were always on time. I can count on you to do this regardless. And it just lifts everyone's spirits up. It gets them ready for the show.
Yeah. I also adopted that one.
Yeah, that's a good one.
It's, with that one for me specifically, it's less about complimenting them as an actor and more about complimenting them as a person.
Right.
Just telling people something that I noticed in them, especially when I'm 28 on one. Like, they don't think that I'm watching them. They don't think that I'm seeing them come into rehearsal sad, leaving happy. They don't think that I see these things. And so letting them know that on a personal level, I have enjoyed my time with you is huge. And then you build that rapport, and then it really helps with the morale right before opening.
Jumping on that, how do you make actors feel welcome and get them to work together, maybe at the start of rehearsals?
The mud pit. The mud pit from earlier.
One of the realities of group dynamics, which I spent decades teaching, is at the beginning of any work session, there's social time. That may be 2 minutes of how are you, the weather sucks, let's get to work. It may end up being that someone's had a bad day and they're taking a few minutes to kind of vent some of that. And as a director, I like to feel that out just a little bit and realize, wait a minute, these people are having this moment. They're sitting on stage, they were running lines, and now someone's talking about their sick kid. And it's like, this is good. Let them talk for a minute. And you feel some of that out. And part of it is there's no whips to be cracked here. There shouldn't be. We're all human beings first. We're workers second. And yes, you've got to watch the time. Yes, you've got to keep things on track. But sometimes the best use of your time is to let them talk and just join. Yeah. Oh, the other one I thought of as somebody else was talking is when you have a larger cast, it's easy to talk to the leads, but make the effort as people come in to try to connect with everybody. At least a quick hello, how you doing, whatever it happens to be.
And with that, like as a director, you have actors, regardless of what show you're doing, that know what they're doing and they need little to no help. And then you have actors where you constantly have to give them guidance, and sometimes you gotta compliment them, even if they don't earn it. You gotta get their spirits up. But a lot of the times, those other actors can feel left out, and they're going, well, I guess I'm so bad they're not even helping me. They're not acknowledging me. And so taking that one-on-one with actors and noticing that and being able to pull them aside and go, no, I'm stepping back because you don't need the help. this person might need a little extra help, you're okay. So knowing that it's personal, you know, taking the one-on-one.
Even to the point of potentially scheduling some one-on-one personal time with no one else around.
Yes.
There's no point in making some poor person stand there and do the same scene 8 times when everyone else can see what the problem is.
Yeah.
Get rid of everybody else. Don't embarrass them. There's no point to it. And think about what battles are worth fighting. They may not say the line the way you want them. You know what? They may never will. And there's nothing you can do about it.
That's your catchphrase there. Battles are worth fighting.
There's no
I like that.
What do you enjoy more, directing or acting?
I like directing. I mean, don't get me wrong, acting is it's what I started with. I'll always love it. I'll always want to do it. But directing is definitely more of a challenge, and I like that aspect. Again, I'm a little bit of a control freak. I like having control over things. And it's really hard to sit there as an actor and go, I don't see how, no, this is how I see it. This is how the way, okay. And you're just sitting there and you have to keep it inside, but as a director, you have that ability to have this vision and make it come to life. And yes, with a little bit of grace and knowing that it's going to change, but also you have a lot more influence as a director, which is why I love working with kids. Getting to see, you know, the love and passion that they have for theater and making it a positive experience so that they're going to grow up and they're going to want to keep doing it, or being that safe place for them where I had a bad day at school, or I had a bad day at home, I don't really want to go yet. Okay, that's fine. You can stay an extra 20 minutes at rehearsal. That's A-okay with me. So personally, I like directing more than acting, but that's just me.
I like acting better. I don't have to keep track of everybody's kittens and all their, not my circus, not my monkeys. I can just do my thing and I'm good. I mean, directing has been, like Dominique said, it's been a great challenge and I do enjoy it, but definitely I feel more comfortable on the stage than telling everybody else what to do.
I have a natural caretaking personality. Nothing I love more than creating environments for other people to shine. And theater's perfect.
Well said.
I'm going to say yes.
I know it's a hard question for you.
I love them both in very different ways. They both scratch different itches. There's something about being a part of something on stage, and I love it. It's something that I take a lot of pride in and a lot of responsibility in, especially when you're put in, for example, a position where you're playing a role that means a lot to a lot of people, and you want to do that justice, and then you have people coming up to you crying and saying how much the show means to them, and then knowing that you were a part of that. And then also, I kind of what Keith said, I love fostering good environments for people to come and to be just themselves and let the facade drop and demask if that's what they need. I've had kids walk through that door crying just because of what's going on out here. And then pulling them outside here and just being like, do you need to talk? Or do you need me to put you over here in this corner and keep everyone else away for 20 minutes? And I love working with kids and love seeing the transition from a kid who I hadn't heard speak a single word for 3 weeks to he is now one of the more outgoing members of our community, and he's the one to go and initiate conversation with the kids who are a little bit more reserved. And yeah, I just love being a part of that creative process and to know that these kids are coming here because they enjoy it, and then also having that drive that I have when I'm on stage. So
I'm going to go off on a little tangent here. You're talking about, you know, as an actor, you get to go out there and you got people coming to you and crying, going, this show was amazing, or, oh, you made me feel this emotion I hadn't felt in years. As a director, it's really important. I had a professor say this to me many years ago, and it stuck with me. If the show is good, it's the actors. The actors were amazing. That it was on them. That is a job well done. Anything goes bad, it is on the director. Just know that off the bat, and it's horrible, but it's true. If a show is bad, You have an actor who can't act, well, that's on the director. But if you have an actor that just stole the entire show and they're just captivating, good job on the actor. So just, it sucks, but kind of keep that in mind.
Do you ever have time, you cast somebody and then you realize, like some of you mentioned here, that maybe that wasn't the best casting decision, but do you ever have time to, well, like you said, work with them one-on-one? I guess you answered my question in that respect. Because sometimes I think people just need a little lesson in diction. Mm-hmm. They're going like this, I don't know what no, you need to, so you get to take them to the next level or whatever.
One of the ways I approach that, by the way, is again, as part of this because of my profession, I try to treat it as a teaching moment, not a directing moment per se. But so when I try to describe something like you're talking about, articulation, I'll explain what it is. And instead of just using the word, I'll say, so what I'm talking about is blah, 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 blah. And so that I think it softens it from a sense of you need to do this to, I want you to understand something so you can then apply it in what you do. I probably bore my cast to death with that stuff. But
Well, I think the teaching moments too, you got to know what works with your cast as a whole, but also as individuals. A lot of directors will take notes. When they get towards the end of rehearsal, they'll sit back during a rehearsal and they'll just jot notes down, and either they'll email them out or they'll sit at the end of rehearsal and go, this is what I'm talking about. That doesn't work with all actors. Sometimes you've got someone in the cast going, okay, I heard that, I don't know what that means though. So they are a visual learner. You need to demonstrate that. So keeping in mind that it's different for everybody.
and don't use interminable note sessions. I've been in shows where we would have a dress rehearsal followed by 2 hours.
Oh, yikes.
Yeah. And by then you're exhausted, you just want to go home. And all you do is resent. That's a director where it's his show. And you're simply his pawns to do this. There's a point to say, you guys said this earlier, there's a point to say, we're not doing any good here. Go home. That's really.
And with that, it's also important when you're taking notes. A lot of the times I tend to do it, I focus on what needs to be fixed. There's so much to do, there's so little time. This needs to be fixed, this wasn't great, that timing was off. That really wears on your cast. Even as a production team, you're looking at it, that lighting cue was wrong, that was off, that was off. They know that. They know they messed up. You don't have to acknowledge every single thing. If it's a huge problem, yes, fix it. But also taking time to acknowledge this went really well. Let's keep it going this way, or let's grow this a little bit more.
I have to give a shout out to Cole, because my kiddo who came in and told me he wanted to be a professional actor, and I'm like, well, why don't you try acting first, see if you like it. Came into children's play, and then to Hayloft, and now to the main stage. And what he's learned from you, Cole, like I've seen him grow huge amounts in the past couple of years, and fostering that like comedic timing that he's so good at that no one knew, not even him. And what he learns just being like with you on stage. And that's what's so great about the barn too, is you get to see that, and you get to see these kids grow up here. And like I grew up here, and now I'm back with my own kid, and so it's like it's really fun to see. And when you get good directors, good lead actors, stuff like that, it really shows the younger kids or new people just kind of what can happen or how you can grow. So I know Cole, you've definitely done that for Kaden.
Well, it's fun to see the natural mentorships that develop. And I've seen where directors will pair a mentor with a kid because they know that that chemistry is going to just make that kid open up. It's so cool to see.
Let's go opposite that. Let's ask you, what are your pet peeves or annoyances that really bother you? Maybe something an actor does or a crew or something that happens that just twists the knife a little bit.
I really love when I give a note and then they completely ignore it.
What do you do then? Just give it again?
You slap them.
Yeah, that's
Well,
what we
she's working
try
with
to.
high schoolers. That's a little.
Well, that's
You can't be wrong with all
Right.
of them.
I mean, again, it's such a person-to-person basis, because, I mean, we've really hit it time and time again just here in this last hour or so, that you have a different rapport with different people, whether it's this kid to this kid or this adult to this child. You can approach a conversation, for instance, with an adult way different than you do a child. And so sometimes it's as simple as, hey, remember we talked about this last night, or we talked about this at the beginning of rehearsal, and then whether it's just they forgot, or it really, you have to learn your cast and your crew and everything. It's a balancing act, because, I mean, like Keith has said, you got to pick your battles too. There's been actors I've worked with as a director who I felt like I couldn't be any more clear. And I had worked with this particular actor, I think 7 nights in a row, one-on-one, and nothing was getting better. And it was like I just wanted to slam my head in the cabinet that was on stage. But you just have to learn where you're gonna win and where you're not. And then, I mean, I guess on the opposite side of that coin, don't look at it as a fight either.
It may be one of those situations like we've been talking about too, where it may be a better individual type coaching session with them to pull them aside and be like, hey, let's chat about this real quick, and maybe do it one-on-one, because they might hear it better than versus in front of everybody else.
My biggest pet peeve is excuses. I'm kind of mean that way. I definitely want to find the grace in it. Life happens. You're a person first, like Keith said, and it's not professional theater. You're not here to make a paycheck. You're here to have fun. But on the flip side of it, you also sign up. No. What? Yeah, that wasn't just.
This is awkward.
I'm not as good of an actor as you. That's why I'm sticking with directing. No, but on the flip side of that, also knowing that they signed up to be here. Nobody forced them to be here. You are here to put on a show. You have an audience that is coming to watch you. You need to make sure that you're working and you're putting in effort and you're not messing around. And also, I don't want to hear the same excuse every single night. I hear that you have a cold. I get that. I haven't said anything about it. You don't have to come up to me every 3 seconds going, I can't sing very well because I have a cold. I know that. We can move on. It's okay. And I think it's really hard to, working with different generations. You know, you have your millennials and your Gen X's, Gen Z's, I don't even know what it all is. But I've done children's show at the community theater in Wilmer. I've done shows here with adults. I do dance classes out in my community weekly now. The younger generation is so challenging to work with because they're watching other people and they're coming up with these excuses, and it is really hard to find that balance between they're a person, they're here for fun, but you also need to work. You know, I have kids come up to me every day, I don't feel good, I don't want to be here. Nope, you wanted to be here last week, you want to be here, you want to put on a good show, that's what we're doing.
Punctuality is my big pet peeve. I'm just a slight variation of what you said. Every rehearsal is always going to be this ebb and flow between fun and work, and I guess one of my pet peeves is when individuals, or maybe even a few individuals, want to keep it on just the laughing side, you know, and not offset that with let's actually make progress. And that's again where maybe that conversation one-on-one. Glad you're having a great time doing this, but we need to be a little bit more focused.
Mine goes, I think Nancy, you're the one that brought it up, when you have an actor that is trying to do the directing to their fellow actors, and maybe not doing it in front of you necessarily as the director, they're doing it down in the green room or backstage. They're saying, you should really do it. No, I have a problem with that, you know.
But that goes against your vision as a director,
right.
So it changes the whole show completely.
Right. Yeah. So
you kind of state that out front.
Yeah.
That if you have something.
Yeah. If you have something, come to me. If you have a suggestion, come to me. I'm more than willing to hear that suggestion and we'll try it out and see if it works or not.
I think that's important.
But don't do it behind,
Yeah.
you know, and then try to just incorporate it. No, that's not going to work for me.
It kind of encompasses all three of your guys's. It's just straight up disrespect. Whether, honestly, less so when it's to me, but when I can see you disrespecting castmates or other crew members, or I know I can take it, but if I'm hearing that you're telling another actor that they suck, or that you're just being disrespectful and not listening to boundaries or anything like that, like, and I wish I could say it was just the kids, but
no, the adults are worse.
Because it's so infuriating when, like I said, fostering that comfortable, happy, productive environment becomes impossible because of one person. And I mean, I've had to pull casts aside, not just children, but adults too, of like, I am the director. I understand that there are ideas, I understand that there are problems, I need to hear them, otherwise I can't do anything about it. And so, I mean, I preach this to the Hayloft kids, theater's a team sport. It is. Like, if you have someone struggling, you need to help be a part of pulling them along. You do not need to be the next thing to trip them up. And it's just, that's my biggest pet peeve, is when I just see someone being disrespectful.
We talk a lot about actors too, but it really comes on the production team as well.
Yeah.
You know, you have that one actor who might pull the entire show down because they're being disrespectful or messing around. You can also have that on the production team though. I've worked with costumers before who are notorious for tearing actors down. You don't fit in that. You need to lose weight. Oh, that doesn't look good on you. Oh, you're doing this wrong. No, you have to have this costume on. And that doesn't always work. So you also have to remember to have those conversations and make sure that as a production team, yeah, you're a team, but you can't have one person that just, this is how it goes. Yeah, it doesn't work.
All right, I know we've touched on this a little bit before, but quickly, can you give maybe your best advice for a first-time director?
Plan.
Too late.
And you'll plan everything, I mean, think through everything you can think of thinking through. I mean, whether it's the blocking or the costuming, or it doesn't matter, scheduling. There's just so much mental stuff that goes on. I don't personally think you can overdo it in terms of anticipating. Be prepared for rehearsal. Walking in, opening your script, and wondering how are we going to block this is not a very good thing to do. Anticipate, plan ahead. That's my big advice.
I will kind of anticipate and plan ahead, but also be prepared for all that, like I've said before, to go over.
That's true.
So be ready for it to completely change as well, because some things just logistically aren't going to work. How you see it in your head is not going to necessarily translate on stage right, or depending on the capabilities of who you have and what you have available, it just may not work. So plan ahead, but also be ready to completely change it in a split second. So
my two biggest things kind of go together. Pick your teams well. Make sure you have a production team that is going to do the work and is going to help you make this show a good show. Same with your cast. Make sure you're picking a good cast. Sometimes easier said than done, the best that you can. But knowing also when to ask for help. Whether that's from the production team or going to the office with a problem, going, I need help with this. Because otherwise, as a director, everything is going to fall on you. All of a sudden, you're the costume designer, you're the publicity manager, you're doing the set, you're helping with the lights, and you have no time for your actors, which is what you should be focusing on during those rehearsals. So don't take on everything and burn yourself out. It does not help you, and it does not help the show.
Breathe. Just remind yourself that you are human and that you are, for lack of a better term, you are in charge of an entire show and an entire cast. Your name is under the director bill, and you need to be patient with those around you and yourself. And if you ever are in a situation during rehearsal and you need just to take 5 and to go out and collect yourself, whether it's because you're frustrated or anything like that, remember to take a step back too. Because it is very easy to get caught up in the moment on one specific night, whether you're having a bad day or rehearsal really is just that frustrating, because it will be. To take that step back and to remember that, yeah, we're working here, but this is also supposed to be a fun environment. Because I've had directors that suck the fun out of shows, and it's really hard. And I've also had directors that just self-implode. And having been on that side, I understand how that happens. And so to give yourself grace, to give yourself patience, just take a breath.
Make sure you're having.
Party when it's all over.
Yeah.
Well, I came in last minute, like they weren't gonna have a show, and so I came in the day before we picked the play pretty much, and so I just felt
Thrown into
very
it.
not prepared. I mean, I'm getting there now, but.
When is
so,
the show?
April 5th and 6th.
See, but remembering that you have this vision, you have all this work that needs to be done, at the end it's going to be worth it.
Yeah.
Whether it was this fantastic show that you had in your head and everything went perfect, or none of it happened, all the actors missed their cue, the dresses are wrong, whatever it may be, it is going to be worth it in the end. Because with high schoolers, you're going to get to see them smiling at the end, and that's all that matters.
And on behalf of that theater department, thank you. Is there are kids, and you may not know it until it's way too late, but there are kids who have been waiting all year for that. And you coming in and saving it, whether or not you feel like you're drowning, means the world to them.
And a theater kid came to me and asked me, please, because we won't be able to play.
Yeah. Well,
You
thank
can't
you.
say no to that. Okay, I guess I'm doing it.
Well, that's the end of my question list. Anything else from the audience?
I think somebody got 101 questions.
I had a question about, you said earlier you had to figure out how to have them like throw a knife and stick in the wall, and I've been thinking like, how did you actually pull that off?
So that one came down to a little bit of engineering and a little bit of magic. So basically what happened is we had a few different knives. There was a big bulletin board with pictures and stuff, and we went and we scored one of the photos. So as he came across with the knife, he would pocket it in his jacket, and then we had a contraption that would shoot a handle through the wall, so it looks like it stuck, and it made a loud enough noise to where it looked like it hit the wall.
And then you just hope it doesn't fall out of his pocket.
And then it was really nice because in that scene, the character he's throwing at, Susie, is fumbling for a light cord, and right after the handle pops out of the wall, she pulls the cord so the lights turn on.
Oh.
So it looked really cool. I mean,
It did.
Bill did a great job with that, and again, that comes down to collaborating and working with what you've got and knowing the skill sets that you have available.
You did not follow the magician's code, you just gave them.
Well,
Theater magic.
I mean, he
That's how
threw
you
it.
do
He
it,
totally
actually.
threw it. Yeah.
What's been your favorite piece of stage magic to make happen?
Favorite piece of stage magic?
Did you say magic?
Magic.
Okay.
Well, the best I ever did was make it rain.
On purpose.
We made it rain. I'm not going to go into all the details, but it was so cool that people left a matinee on a beautiful day regretting that they forgot their umbrellas. Because it was so realistic. It was a frickin' mess. It was beautiful.
Mine was it was a show I did at a different theater, so not here, unfortunately. We used projections and paired it with lighting, and so we had someone who was playing a Greek god, and he walked around, and golden touch, everything he touched turned to gold. So he was able to walk right in front of the projector, and we were able to time it where his hand went by, and slowly the entire black box turned to gold light.
I think another one, just another sleight of hand one, we were doing Big Fish, and there's a scene in there where the main character is fighting like this ninja assassin, which was me. And basically I had a blowgun, and I shot him with it, and he had a sleight of hand, he had a dart in his pocket, and we sleight of handed it, so I shot him with it, and it looked like it went into his neck. And then he pulls it out and he throws it back at me. And there were people in the audience coming up to us afterwards like, how did you do that? And that was really cool. That was a lot of fun to be a part of.
I personally enjoyed making it snow during Elf, although I didn't make it snow. I just rented a snow machine that had that effect, although it should have been a lot quieter, whatever.
It was
But
great.
it looked really cool.
It added a lot to that.
But a lot of the stuff we did during Mary Poppins, like having the bed make itself, the kids shooting up the chimney, that kind of stuff, that being a part of that was a lot of fun too.
Oh, the chalkboard for Matilda.
That was a good one.
That was fun.
Yeah.
And the Matilda making the glass tip over onto me, that was a lot of fun too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I have to make a Cheshire cat disappear. Any ideas on that?
Nice. Lighting is going to be your friend.
Lighting and mirrors
Yeah.
are your friend. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, the mirror's a good one.
You could probably hire a couple of these people to come and do some of that.
Or I can give you the phone number of a guy who can really help you there.
Any more questions? All right, well, if you've got more, you want to learn more, give a call to the office and we can hook you up with some people who can probably answer them.
Just saying, there's no way we answered 101 questions, but.
Oh, you're coming.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys.
Thank you.